Let's bring to order the Shakopee City Council meeting for Tuesday, August 19th, 2025. Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Delaney. Councilmember Whiting.
Here.
Councilmember Contreras.
Here.
Councilmember Laura.
Here.
Mayor Lehman.
Here. Item number 3, please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Item number 4, approval of agenda. Any changes to the agenda?
Nothing from staff, sir.
Council? Councilor Contreras?
I'll make the motion to approve the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Mr. Whiting? Discussion on the motion? Discussion, seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is adopted. Item number 5 is our consent agenda. Any changes to the consent agenda from staff?
Nothing from staff, sir.
From council? Mr. Lara?
I'll pull 5J.
Any other changes to the agenda, consent agenda? Mr. Whiting?
I can make a motion to approve the consent agenda as modified.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion to second. Mr. Reynolds, would you read the consent, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. These are the consent agenda items for Tuesday, August 19th of 2025. 5A approves a cooperative agreement with Scott County for the construction and maintenance of the County Highway 16 extension improvements. 5B is the Minnesota DNR's Conservation Partners Legacy Grant Program application. 5C is the State of Minnesota's 2026 Capital Budget Request Project Priority List. 5D is the monthly financial report for July of 2025. 5E sets a public hearing for the issuance of refunding bonds for Benedictine Living Community of Shakopee LLC. 5F is an FM Fire Grant Program application. 5G is a policy and standard operation procedure development. 5H approves parking restrictions on Shenandoah Drive. 5I approves the City Council meeting minutes for August 26th of 2025. 5K is a Joe Schlepper Stadium baseball field improvements. 5L approves a temporary liquor license for the Shakopee Chamber of Commerce. And 5M approves extended construction hours for the Marystown Road reconstruction project.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds. We do have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 6 would be public comment for items not on the agenda. So if you're here for an item that is not on the agenda, address the city council. If you're anybody here for an item that is not on our agenda. Yes?
Item is on consent.
And was adopted or removed from consent? 5J was removed. That's an item on the consent, and that will come up later in the agenda.
Momentarily.
Okay, so there's nobody here for an item not on the agenda. Item number 7, business removed from consent agenda. Item number 5J was removed by Councilor Lara. Mr. Lara?
Yeah, I removed it just so we can have staff make some clarification notes that were sent out earlier.
Yes. We all received that through the Council Connect online, and I forwarded mine to staff, and staff responded with some engineering input. And we didn't receive the petition. So
5J? Correct.
5J, the County Road 17 expansion project.
We do have a petition.
Why would we receive, isn't that a county?
It is, but there,
Okay.
it would be the clerk right here, if you want to hand that to the clerk.
We do have the county engineer here who can speak to the issue. This, as you know, is not a city project, it's a county project. I would encourage those in attendance to go to the county meetings and talk to them about their project. But that being said, we certainly sent some information out from a staff level, from a professional staff level earlier, which we initially had a lot of concerns about this project. The county worked very hard to address the majority of those concerns. And from our perspective as staff, this certainly meets everything that we were concerned with, and that's why we support it from a staff level.
So if I could ask Councilor Lara if it would be acceptable for staff to go ahead and read what the concerns were and what their engineering response was, unless the county engineer would like to do that? Is county engineer here? Did you receive that?
I did, yes.
Would you like to come up and address some of them concerns?
And if I may, Mayor, the responses that I sent out are from our city engineer.
Right.
And so, I know that the county engineer might have there's some issues there where we said you really need to talk to the county.
Right. And it is a county project.
So, but, I can also, our city engineer is not here tonight, but I can certainly read his responses for everybody.
Very good.
What would you like me to do?
I'm going to let the county go
Okay.
first.
Okay.
Floor's yours, sir.
Is this on here at all?
Yep.
Good.
It's got to get real close.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. My name is Tony Winnicky. I'm the Scott County Highway Engineer, and understand that concerns were raised in particular from the neighborhood to the north, I believe. The comments that I received here just a few hours ago. And so I can talk about a few of these here. So as you know, this has been a project that has really stemmed from a corridor study that was started in 2007 and concluded in 2009 along County Highway 17. It was really the river crossing to 101 to County 17, southward to Trunk Highway 13 down to the southern limit, and establishing County Highway 17 as the principal arterial roadway, the north-south principal arterial roadway in the county from a long-term planning standpoint. And that was signed off in 2009 by county board, city councils on the cities in that route, and then townships along that route as well. And so really established the framework for what would happen long-term to achieve those goals of that study and moving in that direction. So from that, there were several projects, and this all was presented at the July 15th. So I don't want to reiterate all of that, but just some highlights from that. Ms. Mayor, looks like you have a question.
Well, I just wanted to point out that what was approved in '09 was much more expansive than what is before us today. It had a much higher traffic count, much higher projections of growth, and a lot of the land has changed ownership so that growth wouldn't be happening. And this actual project that's before us now has been scaled back.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're right. And as we talked about at the July 15th, the presentation that was given and discussed at that time, and through our project management team and working with both cities and SMSC on this corridor, was right-sizing the project. And Adam Jessen was up here at that time talking about that, right-sizing the project. So, but with that, as part of that improvement along that corridor to make sure that it functions as a principal arterial roadway, higher speed, higher mobility, safety, reduced access, all of those things are the supporting local road networks. And as was presented last month, talked about that and all the work that was done in the area of from 42 north. And this next project is from 42 south through the County 82 intersection. So major improvements at 82, at 14, access changes at a few neighborhoods. And then what came out then of the neighborhood meeting or the open house meeting in April, it was really great discussion, a lot of feedback. We made changes here that was presented again at the July 15th meeting, what was changed. And then as part of that, what kind of came out is, I think now is the right time to make that neighborhood connection, which was part of the 2009 plan, was to make that from the Why Not Acres neighborhood, the Marcia neighborhood, to the north, which gets then into Jennifer Lane and then makes that connection up to 78. So you have a continuous neighborhood road connectivity from the south up to County 78. And so I determined that now would be the time to do that. And we actually own a property already, in advance of this at the Heron Court intersection when the timing came for this. And with changes that are being made with the other project, we determined that the timing would be now. And so I know there are several people here that, they're hearing this for the first time. And it's always a little tricky in, how the timing of this happens, whether, we come to you first and then they hear about it, or we reach out to folks that might be impacted and then they reach you and, oh boy, we didn't hear about this either. So the timing's always a little tricky when that happens. Knowing that, and was mentioned at that July 15th meeting, that we would have an open house meeting to bring these kind of neighborhoods together, talk about this, and when this would happen as part of the project, and start to work through all of that. So that's really the stage that we're at right now. So our plan is to have an open house meeting in late September. And generally, we would send out a flyer a few weeks in advance. We usually don't do that 2 months in advance because then people just kind of forget about it. But if it's kind of close enough, so generally that 2-week period. So, that's coming relatively soon where people are going to see flyers. And so we have the opportunity to meet again and then gather input and really kind of hear and understand that. Yes, Mr. Mayor.
At your past public meeting that you held at the 282 building, what areas were invited to that?
Yeah, it was the area from the Wynot Acres south, and not south of 282, but so that boundary from 282, so not the Jennifer Lane, if you will, not that neighborhood. And at that time, we didn't know if we'd be doing this quite yet and the timing of that. But we feel the importance is to do that now. We have the ability to use our sales tax funding to make this happen. And as you know, which was presented, the county is fully funding the project, including right-of-way that's needed for that connection. So we knew that we'd be having another follow-up meeting. And sometimes if it's too big, if we did all that one time, we're talking, now you've got hundreds of people. I mean, the way it is right now, that the border from 79 up to 78 and 17 boxed in, there's hundreds of homes in there the way it is.
Right.
And completing all of that as an open house down to 82, it's a pretty large, open house. And be able to get that individual input is sometimes hard.
It is, but from the opposite perspective, you have a neighborhood that feels left out.
Yeah, and we apologize for that, but we didn't know if we'd be doing this yet.
Wood
But
duck.
looking from a funding standpoint and need of the project, some other changes have been made. We know we want to provide alternatives for traffic connections and routing for people, and we feel that this provides that. And economies of scale, it's better to do that now than wait.
Okay. Questions so far, Mr. Lara?
Just want to ask a clarifying question to make sure I understood this correctly. It sounds like you will be hosting a open house mid to end September with the new neighborhoods involved.
Correct. Yeah, the Marcia Lane neighborhood, they already know of the project, but because of this change, we want to include them again. And then that whole neighborhood, again, all the way up to 78 from 17, and then on the west side, Town Line or County 79.
Jennifer and Wood Duck.
Sure.
Yes. Yep, all of that neighborhood. So there's several hundred houses that are in there.
Okay. And any other questions yet? And then as of the concerns that were listed on the petition, you want to just address some of them?
I think a big one, is, and rightfully so, it's like, what can we expect for additional traffic, out here? And you look at the Marcia neighborhood is 39 or 40 homes. So when you kind of do the math on that, okay, in general, they're going to generate about 10 trips a day. And some are going south, maybe down to New Prague, maybe over to Prior Lake. And as you know, with the new change, okay, they can make a U-turn at Norton, so when they want to get to 42. So there's a part of that. Maybe that's 30% that are doing that. And then maybe you've got 70% that are heading north, to 169. Maybe they go through the neighborhood, a few that get to Town Line to get in. I would think the vast majority are getting to 17, maybe up to 169 is their destination. So you kind of look at that math and then you go, okay, well, there's probably not a lot of southbound traffic because 29th Avenue is still going to be open. So there's not a reason for people, if they're destined to the Wynot Acres neighborhood, that they would go through Jennifer Lane and kind of snake through that way to get there. They would stay on 17 and make an easy right in at 29th Avenue, which is right across from County Road 42, to get into that neighborhood back home. So you're knocking out like half of those trips right there. And then you've got a percentage that are probably going to get on at Wood Duck. So it's probably more of an AM period timeframe that they're doing that. So those that are destined to the north, some are going to use Wood Duck certain times a day. Some are going to go all the way up to 78. And you look at that math and you go, okay, there's probably, depends how the neighborhood on the Marcia neighborhood, if you're on the northern half, will you do that? And if you're on the southern half, will you simply go south to Norton, make a U-turn, and then head north on 17? And kind of looking at that neighborhood and the times to do that, it's about, time-wise, about an equal split to get to the point of the signalized intersection at 17 and 78. So people make a conscious decision, and sometimes time of day. So you can't say specifically, well, what is that exact number? I can give you a ballpark. Maybe it's, 120 to 140 vehicles a day, if you kind of do the math with that. And then you go, in general, 10% of that's is peak hour traffic. So you do the math with that, and it's a handful during the peak hour that would travel either to Wood Duck or all the way up to 78. So I don't think the impact from the sheer number of homes that are there, and they're not growing, it's fully built out, is that big of an impact on the neighborhood.
Okay. And the next, any questions on that one? Next concern that was raised?
That seemed to be kind of so there was one about the golf course and golf carts interaction. I know there's one or two locations, if those that are routing over to Town Line or County 79. And I would guess most of the traffic from the Marcia neighborhood are probably going up to 17, not that route. So you're talking, a few in a peak hour or maybe 10 in a day that might go that way from a trip standpoint. So I know that was one concern.
The narrow streets and lack of curb gutter and trails and sidewalks in Wood Duck.
Yeah, so I know the city has some, I don't know all of the city streets. I know probably the northern 3/4 of Jennifer Lane does have a sidewalk on the west side of the roadway.
Okay.
And the rest in there, the city could respond to that, but.
Okay.
So those are probably the, yeah, I think those are the big ones. I think maybe some questions were addressed with the bigger project. And again, we're very welcoming to the open house and receiving other input and having this conversation one-on-one. I mean, we're going to have that here in a month or so.
Okay. Any other questions of county engineer staff? Thank you, sir. Mr. Reynolds?
Mayor, Councilman Elvis, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I would just simply say, the county highway engineer covered things relatively well. The big piece is this was always designed. And in 2009, the city council at that time specifically said in their approval of the general plan from the county at that point is that this connection, the rural connection, need to happen as part of that project. So the county is doing exactly what the council wanted in 2009.
And at that time, the 17 project was much more restrictive to accesses and it was geared for a much higher volume.
Yeah, and the whole point of doing it is to give residents multiple options to leave their neighborhood.
Okay.
And I'll just comment that it wasn't the 2009, but the first rendition of this southern plan, we had a lot of problems with. The neighborhood was having a lot of problems. So some of these concerns that are projects that we're now talking about were to alleviate some of those concerns. So I know it's like pushing that puzzle from one piece to the other, but we appreciated what the county did to alleviate the concerns on the southern side. So I'm hoping that the county will work with any concerns that the citizens have on the northern part of this project and come to resolution on some of the concerns. I mean, we won't get all the way there, but we can work with what we can do. But we strained over that project, and the county, we had to squeeze the county, as far as I'm concerned, quite a bit on that to get the Marcia Lane and that area, those projects through with little less pain, I guess. So with that, because that was a lot of work, but Was there other, that's all I have is the
Yeah,
comments.
my comment, what I was thinking about this, and you're absolutely right, Counselor, that, we had many conversations here publicly with Scott County about our concerns that we heard from residents and stuff and our own concerns. But one of the things that caught my attention is, there's a lot of discussion in our society about a lack of compromise at various levels of government. And here you have the city, the county, and the residents coming together for meetings, public meetings, and multiple meetings here, where the county is not getting exactly what they wanted. What they really wanted was straight shot, cut off all accesses, and make their road to the design standard of what its intended purpose originally was. And so they're not getting everything they want. We fought and tried to get what we wanted from the local side, and there's a lot of compromise that actually happened here. And now, compromise is not acceptable either. So,
Wow.
so we find ourselves in a situation where, you try to do the best you can on a project that's not even our jurisdiction, and, we are trying. We've got more control over the trail along this road than we do the road. So I would highly encourage that these conversations, public conversations on county projects, happen prior to this process. I totally understand where the Wood Duck, Jennifer Lane are coming from. They feel totally left out of this process. And it's 11th hour. They're just finding out. They're seeing this for their first time. And so I totally understand where they're coming from. And maybe some of this would have been alleviated if they would have been part of the discussions early on. And I understand yours too, where too many at once is bad too, so maybe you have two separate ones for the southern part and the northern part. We, both the county board, city councils, state legislator, all of us, we have an obligation to hear and allow our constituents that redress from their government. So, all right, what's the wishes of council? Mr. Lara?
Yep, real quick, and another thing too, here in our notes, it just says, Scott County is requesting the city to officially approve the preliminary design. It's not final. It doesn't say final, so that's the silver lining, I think. So with all of that said, with knowing that there's gonna be a public meeting moving forward, I see no reason to not make a motion to authorize staff to approve the County Highway 17 Extension Project layout.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilor Contreras. Discussion on the motion?
No.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. And I would encourage the Wood Duck and Jennifer Lane to seek out your county commissioners' meetings and their public comment sections for your section of road.
One issue with this, and I apologize for interrupting.
I'm sorry, sir. Excuse me, sir. If you're going to, can you please come up to this seat and state your name and your address?
It's going to be.
Aaron Sanders, 1394 Wood Duck Trail. A couple of things with the engineer, I appreciate what he said, and I understand this process. I do this, I understand this. I think one of the challenges I'm running into is we have people here who just found out about this, and you only ask the engineer. I will tell you flat out, I disagree with him. Because when you look at the plan, here's the problem with the plan that they don't talk about. We're talking about 20 homes of adding a road that's going to disturb way more than the other 20 homes. Not only that, you're talking about adding these other locations to leave the neighborhood. Here's a rub with that. Look at their plan. Go down to Norton or Marshall Lane. When you're traveling south, you only turn right. When you turn right, you can only travel south. When you're traveling north, you can only turn left. You cannot cross Marshall Road. I would like a serious explanation why that is allowed there, but at Wood Duck Trail you can cross. When we have more traffic because we are taking 42 plus Marshall. Here's what I would say. It's a really simple solution. If they go ahead and if they were to take that same thing and do the same exact thing at Wood Duck Trail, I guarantee that neighborhood would be going, there's no way we're driving all the way there, turning around and going to Jennifer Lane up to 78 just to go north.
We had those conversations with
we
the
did.
county.
Okay, so then
Okay.
when is it going to happen that we put this road in and then we turn around and Wood Duck Trail, because now we're putting another 20-plus cars a day, and we cross that out, now we got a dead road.
There's two issues here that maybe you didn't catch early on. One is we did have these conversations with the county early on. Second is you're asking us to engineer a county project.
I'm not.
Okay,
No,
and-
you approve something for preliminary
we're approving
without anyone
preliminary.
else talking about it.
We're approving preliminary. You heard me tell the county that in the future, the better way of doing this is, in my opinion, X, Y, and Z. I can't tell the county what to do. I can suggest. There is
So
county
I guess that my
commissioner.
point is why
there-
weren't we given the chance?
There's a
then?
county commissioner here in the audience. I'm sure they're listening to your concerns. Your concerns are not with the city, they're with the county. And
Is it a city, is Wood Duck Trail a city road or a county road?
Marshall Road is a county road project.
Wood Duck Trail.
Wood Duck Trail is a city
Okay,
street.
and the road that will extend is not a county trail. It is a city road that's going to be extended.
Which was planned on extension from 2009.
Planned.
So it's not a surprise that this road is being extended.
Okay.
It was in the documents for many, many years.
And like you said earlier, things change. It was a really big plan, and guess what? Everything that you did in 2009, you proposed, it didn't go through. So why is it that you're sticking to something that you say, it was proposed then, instead of saying, guess what? Things change, we reconvene, and we look at this differently?
The local street.
The local
what
street.
changed-
We're not talking about Marshall. We are talking about the local street.
This is not
Here's
a
what
public
happened.
hearing.
Yeah, it's not.
They did
And-
not
and
have
just
this
hang
local
on,
street
hang
in
on.
the plan.
Nothing on the local side changed. What changed is the Marshall Road capacity and local access. If we go back to the original design, it would be geared up for much more traffic and there'd be much less local access and you'd all be driving a lot farther, so.
Or 5 minutes.
All right,
I just wanted my voice heard, simply that you guys voted on something. That's all.
nope, we listened to all sides and unfortunately, it's not our project to be able to dictate.
Okay, thank you.
I would also like to have some comments.
This is not a public hearing.
No, we already passed this, we already raised up,
But you do not have the full scope of the project.
yep, pardon me?
You do not have the additional proposal of how they would like to change the project. That has not been given to you.
We
That needs
don't,
to be
we
brought
don't
to the
have,
county.
we don't have the final design. It says right in this document, this is preliminary only. There may be changes to it.
What was presented at the county meeting that you attended, this part of the project, the frontage road, was not presented at that meeting.
Not a public hearing.
No, it's
We were not aware of that, and neither are the rest of the counselors. We're approving a
yes,
preliminary.
yes, we saw that, we saw
We do
that,
not have the full scope.
we saw that plan last time the county was here having that.
The county was here, and they
Yes.
presented it.
Yes.
But they did not present it to the rest of the people.
I believe they got some of these ideas from a lot of the people at that meeting.
Is it legal for the county to go through the condemnation process to acquire land for a city road?
That would be a Thompson question or a
That is what
city
is
attorney, or county attorney question?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I don't know the facts of that and the details, and I'd have to discuss it with the county attorney before I
Yep.
give you an opinion on that.
I would strongly encourage everybody to go to your county commissioners' meetings, ask to be on the agenda if you need be, give them your petition.
But you are approving the preliminary project.
We are approving the preliminary project. There could be changes to the final project. The local street was the same as 2009, and although I think the trails changed a little bit.
And keep in mind, there's still a public hearing that's going to occur that you would be able to say this all at
Yep.
with the county.
Public meeting.
Right?
Yes, I understand that the authority is with the county. But the city is approving something that was never presented to the full council.
That's not true.
It
Yeah,
was.
that's not true.
So you have seen this extension?
Yes.
The frontage
Yes.
road?
Yes.
Okay.
Since 2009?
Yes, here
Yes.
in this chamber.
Comprehensive plan.
Jen,
We had a meeting with the county in this chamber with that in the plan.
originally.
I understand that. When you talk about compromise between the city and the county and the residents, I have been through 2 condemnations with the county, and there is 0 compromise. We have had land taken twice. This will be the 3rd time. And myself and my neighbor Jeff Holt are the biggest losers in this proposed project because it cuts right through the middle of our properties. We are not happy about that. We do not want, it's, first of all, the project is being driven because they have excess sales tax dollars to spend. That's a reason to cut through the properties and try to accommodate 41 homeowners. They never accommodated us in the previous condemnations.
The studies was to minimize access points between each other to meet the criteria that they've decided is their criteria for a major arterial.
They had a huge project, so all the
That's the-
transportation issues.
We gotta move on, ma'am.
Yep.
We gotta move on,
Yep.
ma'am.
We appreciate your comments, and
You
I-
don't.
I would encourage you to take it up with the
And the
county.
communication with the county has been horrible. No one knew that there was a meeting here at the city council in July, and they did not know about the meeting tonight. They're going to talk to the neighbors in September when the city has approved everything.
We haven't approved everything. If you read it, it's preliminary only.
So that they can take it to the next
I'm
step.
highly disappointed.
Item 8A, Comprehensive Revenue Policy for Park and Recreation.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I am here tonight to bring to you our comprehensive revenue policy for the Parks and Recreation Department. As I've mentioned, I believe it was last meeting, this is part of our CAPRA accreditation, which is, I would say, the main reason why we developed this. But as I go through this tonight, I will explain all the benefits that I believe it's going to have on our department, both short and long term. So the purpose of this policy is to provide a clear, consistent, and practical framework for managing the financial operations of Parks and Recreation. It guides our pricing, cost recovery, and resource allocation. The goal is to support financial sustainability while maintaining community accessibility and value and allowing Shakopee to have a diverse portfolio of parks and recreational services. And it uses a structured, industry-recognized approach to classify our different programs and service and set cost recovery goals accordingly. So I added this slide this morning. This was not part of your original packet, but I wanted you to see the standard as CAPRA outlines it. This little red star next to it means this is a required standard in our accreditation, so we have to have this in order to get accredited. Again, CAPRA is all about making sure that park and recreation agencies that are accredited are operating by the best practices of the industry, and having this comprehensive revenue policy is part of that. So the big thing, and we talked about this a little bit when I presented the community center fees, is making sure that there are strategies and methodologies for determining fees and charges and levels of cost recovery in the services that we offer. So our guiding principles of this document is sustainability, accountability, clarity, and consistency, making sure we understand why we're pricing our programs and services the way they are priced, and to be able to clearly communicate that to the public and our staff. Okay, so this is our cost recovery model. So this is based off the Green Play LLC cost recovery model. Again, it's very recognized in Parks and Recreation. We modified it a little bit in order to meet our specific needs here in Shakopee. And how we're defining cost recovery target as it relates to this policy is the percentage of total cost that is intended to be offset through generated revenue, such as fees, charges, or other sources. And it represents the financial goal for recouping expenses associated with delivering a program or service. As part of the fee setting process, we will also conduct a market rate comparison, similar to what we did for the community center fees. And the final fees will reflect both this cost recovery model and market rate comparison. So this first tier is the community benefit tier. The goal with this, actually, I have this outlined a little further, so we'll just go here. So our first tier, we define this as a broad community benefit. Our cost recovery goal for this target would be anywhere from 25 to 50% cost recovery. It will include programs and services that enhance the overall well-being of Shakopee, whether it's promoting public health, public gathering, mental health, those types of services. I know Council Member Delaney couldn't be here tonight. He had asked for an example, so I'll share that with you as well. So an example of a program or service that we currently offer that I would believe would fall into this tier would be like our Spooky Family Fun event, our egg hunt that we had earlier in the spring, and our summer carnival. Events that we offer at very low cost or free to attend. And we meet this cost recovery target with our public-private partnerships through sponsorships and donations from local organizations, businesses, et cetera.
Mr. Whiting.
So currently, we have our service organizations can get a room for free. Local service or Boy Scouts, clubs, things like that. How would that fall into your tier for cost recovery and when we rent rooms to other people?
Great question. So that's all going to be part of the process in rolling this out. So right now, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have certain organizations that are outlined in our fee schedule that get free or discounted rooms. That would still apply, and we would look at that as kind of this community benefit where we're offering this because of what they're giving back to the community.
And maybe we go to one of the other service organizations to say, hey, we want you to maybe give us some money to pay for these rooms or something.
Oh, yes, absolutely. So, when we look, we seek sponsorships and partnerships for these types of services or programs, just like saying yes.
Okay, thanks.
All right. So moving to our next tier, this is, in my opinion, kind of the most complicated tier to explain, but this is what we call a mixed benefit. So it includes programs and services that provide a value to both the individual while also contributing to the community well-being. The way I like to think of it is it promotes public safety, social connection, and general safety. Our cost recovery target here would be 50 to 75%. The example I used here, I can think of a couple, but this would be like our active older adult or senior services where the individual is getting the benefit from the program or service we offer, but providing that mental well-being, that social connection for our seniors is super important. So that's an example of something that would fit into this tier. Another one could possibly be our swimming lessons. We're the land of 10,000 lakes, and making sure that children and adults learn how to swim promotes public health and safety and minimizes risk of drowning. That is one where the price might then also come up a little higher compared to what other municipal organizations are offering that at. And then sometimes the American Red Cross can dictate fees with that. So again, that's a great example of where we use this as our goal, we balance the market rate comparison, and then we set our prices. So our third tier, this is our individual benefit. This tier includes programs and services that provide a direct value to the individual with limited community impact. Examples here would be our summer camp program. That program is specifically benefiting those children and families that are enrolled in the program. Our goal is 75 to 100% cost recovery. However, even at that goal, we're still providing a great service that's far more affordable than what you would find in the public sector. And then lastly would be Tier 4. I like to call these profit centers. This is where we are aiming to make revenue. So our goal here would be 25 or more % above our direct and indirect costs. Some of these programs or services might fall outside of the department's core mission, but because they generate this revenue and help offset subsidies in lower tiers is why we provide services like this. A great example would be ice rentals. They're paying market rate for that. It's solely benefiting the group that's utilizing the ice, but then that revenue generated there can help offset some of the programs we offer for free or low cost. So how do we decide? So we have created a tool for staff, and it's basically a decision tree to guide them to the correct tier for their program based on a series of questions. So we would create this new program. Staff would walk through this decision tree to understand where it is, work with their supervisor to figure exactly what tier a program would be offered. That way, at that point, they know their cost recovery target. At that point in time, we have developed a cost estimation tool that will need to be adjusted slightly for this policy, but to essentially staff can put in different variables to see what what price point the service or program needs to be at versus, okay, we want to charge $10. How many participants do we need in order to meet our cost recovery target? So this will be a super helpful tool and combined with the decision tree in order to make sure that our programs and services are aligning how they should. So just to reiterate, staff will calculate the full cost of program or service, both our direct and indirect costs, apply the appropriate cost recovery rate, do their market comparisons, and finally have a final product of where the fee should land. I'm not going to spend too much time on the community center fees, but just a reminder, our goal for the community center is going to take us a few years to get to our ideal fee methodology that's outlined in the policy. Okay, so as far as resident and non-resident fees, this is something we currently do. Resident rates are intentionally set lower than non-resident rates to acknowledge the financial support of tax dollars that they pay through their property taxes. For programs, right now what we currently do is we assess a $10 fee for every program for a non-resident. The problem with that is if you are charging say the program is $15, the percentage that you're charging for that program versus a program that's $100 is significantly different. So by setting a percentage, that helps it be more equitable across all of our programs and offerings. So for our programs, we are recommending that we add a 30% to the program, the base program fee for the resident rates, and then the non-resident rates would be 30% above. For our recreation facilities, including community center, ice arena, and sand venture. Ice arena, not as much because we don't have memberships and daily admissions there per se, but this would be set at 40% higher than resident rates just because the cost of operating those facilities are so much more than putting on a program. And then our non-resident fees will not apply to programs or services or offerings classified in Tier 4. Since the goal in Tier 4 is to generate a profit, the price should be set at that profit no matter who's attending. that is what we currently do when it comes to our ice rentals and our room rentals and things that would fall into that Tier 4 category. So then we have our scholarships, sponsorships, and volunteer program. So our scholarship program is to provide support to allow broader community access to our programs and services. In this policy will be available for Tier 2 and Tier 3 programs or services. Essentially, those programs, services, offerings that are more individual in nature and priced at a higher fee, those that may not be able to afford it can access the scholarship program to help offset some of those costs. When it comes to sponsorships, we want to be very cautious that in 2025, businesses and local partners have a lot of people coming to them for sponsorships. We want to make sure that the benefit is mutual and that the sponsor is getting a lot of exposure from sponsoring our programs and events. And so these would be something that we would seek for our Tier 1 programs in order to offset, these broader community impact offerings, events, et cetera, by having these public-private partnerships. And then lastly, our volunteer program plays a key role in supporting the cost effectiveness of our service delivery. We use volunteers for all types of programs and events, but specifically those large community events that I mentioned earlier is where we're utilizing volunteers the most, and that just helps offset staff time.
So question, I was asked why the Baseball Association isn't allowed to sell advertising space for banners on fences or whatever up at the stadium. Does this change any of that?
No, and actually that's in our ordinance, so this would not change any of that.
That's a long-standing city ordinance.
Yep. So when you talk about a business sponsoring something, but to get the recognition for that, how are they being recognized if they can't advertise?
So for an example, our summer carnival is an event where we seek a lot of sponsors. They will sponsor by, simply donating, maybe it's a monetary amount, just to make sure that they'll donate a monetary amount, potentially, just to support that community event, and they want to, donate to something meaningful. Oftentimes they will do that, and then they will set up a booth at our summer carnival or other event, and they get to be a part of it, and they have people walking by their booth and talking to them, so they get more exposure for their business. Kraus Anderson sponsored our Sand Venture opening by providing all of our t-shirts. We put their logo on our shirt. So there's various different ways where they can get involved. And it's usually, we have a lot of very generous local organizations and businesses that want to be a part of our events. But just making sure that they are getting something out of it, I think is super important. I don't know if that answered your question.
Mr. Whiting?
I'm going to follow up, I think, a little bit on that, but I want our events to be marketed. We do, and I'm thinking of the music in the park and things like that. And so I don't want to have a tier, the lower tier that doesn't generate a lot of money, whatever that was, 1 or 4, but I want to be able to market that still. So I'm hoping we can keep a budget separate, not reflecting on the tiers, so that we can make sure that the sponsors or the non-sponsors at least are getting out in the public so the public knows about what's going on. It's hard nowadays, but we got to find ways to communicate and put money into that marketing so our events are well at least communicated.
Well, and I'll call out Amanda. I know she's here somewhere, but her and we do have an advertising budget with Parks and Recreation Department, and her and I kind of developed a strategic plan for marketing for our Sand Venture sale this past April, which is crazy to think that
So
was that far
ask
away.
for more in that budget. We might be able to get it in there. I think we should do more.
And there's also a lot of free avenues for marketing. I mean, Facebook, there's different pamphlets that go out to the community. I know the chamber offers marketing spaces in some of their brochures for very, very low cost. So there's a lot of different avenues. We are also very lucky. We have a very talented communications department we like to do lots of creative videos.
Don't get
and
me wrong, we do great work. We get awards and things, but
Yes.
more, anything we can get out there to the public, because it's so hard to crack
It is.
through sometimes. So,
Yeah.
and I think we use at some of the teenagers in our program that we had, why am I blocking the name of the school program? The
Academies?
The academies,
Apps.
yeah, we had, and they were great at getting into some of those newer marketing and
Well, and I
technologies.
think one thing that would be very cost-effective, efficient, and simple would be to have a centralized place for people to look to see what's going on. And we kind of do that already on the city's website.
Yeah, we do.
So maybe it's just a matter of trying to get people to look in the right places, which things are constantly changing. You know, we used to have the newspaper, where that's gone. We used to have, you know, we've got a population that doesn't really use technology. Then we got the other population that only relies on technology. So we're kind of right in that middle area right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting balance. My goal would eventually to be for like a physical place for people to come get information would be our community center. And I think that's one area where we could really advertise and market more to make sure that all of our residents know about it and know what we offer and all of that.
It's so hard now.
Well,
Yes.
even if it was community events that took you to a page in Park and Rec that listed all the events, you know, that might be something to, and
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
that's for somebody better at that than me, so. Continue, please.
All right, so that is essentially all I have. The goal of this comprehensive revenue policy, and I know we talked a little bit about it the last meeting, but is really striking that balance within the department over what is getting a subsidy through our general fund and where we're trying to generate fees, and really assigning a philosophy, a methodology, whatever you'd like to call it, as why things are priced, categorized the way they are. So I think this is going to be super beneficial. And so with that, the action we are seeking tonight is to approve the Parks and Recreation Comprehensive Revenue Plan. And then if there's any more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions of staff? Laura?
Just more of a comment. I really liked the that you went to a percentage model versus just like a. You said normally you do take the base price and then add $10 for a non-resident amount, and then like you said if you just use that and you have one item that costs lower, but then you're adding it makes more sense to do a percentage. And you're right, you can easily explain the equitability with a percentage, saying like, hey, it's 30% across the board. And
Exactly.
so, no, I like the inclusivity. I do like that you guys we actually do offer a fair amount of low cost or free events for the public. And I think then what it does is gives them an opportunity to see, well, what else can I do? And then are they willing to pay that amount to do that? And if they had a good time at this event, they're going to have a good time at that one too. So that's.
Thank you,
yeah.
Councilor Lara. My question, did you want to respond to that, or is more of a
Oh,
comment?
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
My question is, you know, we don't want to see our general levy subsidy double. Do we have any idea what this would do overall? I mean, granted, it's going to take a little bit of time to make these adjustments and things, but what's the expectation from a general levy subsidy?
My goal, and we're not there yet, but we're also not terribly far away, is for our department as a whole, as we have all these different tiers, is to operate at a 75% cost recovery. Again, we are not there yet, but we're not terribly far. I believe, I'd have to go back and look, but I believe last year we were at 51%. So we're not coming from 2% and trying to get to 75. Now we still have work to do, but things like making sure our fees for our largest revenue generating things like Sand Venture, community center memberships are continuously evaluated and matching market rate is huge. The minute those start getting, I guess, almost forgotten about, and cost of living increases and everything increases, now you have these services that are basically priced for 10 years ago. Making sure that doesn't happen, I think that's key. And I think it's going to take a few years to get there, but that would be my goal, is for our department to be at 75% cost recovery.
Okay. Mr. Whiting?
I think this plan takes away the gray areas and makes it easy to explain, like you mentioned. So with that, I make a motion to approve the comprehensive revenue policy for Parks and Recreation Department.
I'll
Is-
second.
Motion by Mr. Whiting, seconded by Counselor Contreras. The discussion. Another question that I had, he jumped in pretty quick there. What, if this is adopted, on what time basis would these things be reviewed? Would it be every year, every 2 years, every 3 years?
So we would begin implementing this with our new brochure cycle, which I believe, it's crazy to think about, but I think we start that in about 3 weeks. And then it would be something that I would review at a minimum every 2 years. But I think something, because we're talking about fees and prices and things change so rapidly, Parks and Recreation is a trendy industry for whatever reason it is. So I think it's important to at least review it every year. I think CAPRA requires it to be reviewed every 3. But I think it's important to review it every year.
All right.
Thank you for all the hard work.
Any other questions?
No question.
We do have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Item 8B, Healing Center and Music Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Mr. Kursky.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So this is a MUSA expansion to the comprehensive plan to include the area that's outlined in blue. We currently have city services in this area, and the Shakopee, Manitowoc, and Sioux community is building a healing center over here. And since we have sewer right here in the street, we would propose bringing sewer over to their facility along with water. And they have worked with our engineering department and Shakopee Public Utilities to come up with agreements to serve their facility.
Questions of staff? Mr. Lara?
Could you talk a little bit more about the healing center a little bit? Just kind of get, what is it?
Yeah.
I would leave that to Mr. Renicky, who's here from the SMSC.
Shakopee, Metawakanton, Sioux Communities Administrator, Bill Renicky. If you like, you can either do the chair up here, pull that microphone closer up. It does move. It just feels heavy on the bottom. We can hear you. Thank you.
Mayor, City Council members, my name's Bill Rudnicki, the Shakopee Tribal Administrator. The Healing Center is a facility that's a 40-bed facility that will be servicing not only our tribal members, but tribal members from the Upper Sioux community, Lower Sioux community, and Prairie Island. We selected the 40-acre site a while back and took it to our general council for a vote a couple years ago. And when we were looking at the utilities for this site, we had some options: try to extend utilities from the tribe, or look at using the utilities from the city and the commission. A little bit about the building: it's a 40-bed facility, and it's really designed to allow the members to heal using cultural practices. So we do have an area for them to be in the building, but then we'll have some gardens and some things that will be outside on the 40-acre property. We have a good working relationship with the church that is to the north of the property. The facility is essentially will have programming that will be done on site. We do have an executive director for the site. John Ryan will be running the site. He comes from Prairie Care, which is an organization that has done some of these type of facilities. So other than an area for accommodations, beds, there'll be a kitchen area, there'll be areas for recreation. There'll be areas that will be there for classroom instruction and for an opportunity to do therapy in those type of areas for people that are in recovery. And we have been working on this for a number of years and feel like we need to take this opportunity to really allow some people to heal more than just a 30-day stay at a other type of facility. So hopefully that answers your
It does.
question.
Thank you much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir. Questions of staff? Mr. Whiting?
It doesn't sound like the development is so large that it's going to impact the utilities in such a way that we'd lose water flow or impact the sewer flow. So I don't think it's a big concern if that's 40 acres and a 40-bed facility.
Mayor and Council, we have more than adequate capacity.
More than adequate.
Right.
Well, and I don't think the goal, as explained, is to develop 40 acres. It's a 40-bed facility with,
But we're just expanding the MUSA line here is
Right.
what I'm saying. So that, the line is there for a reason. I know we're getting into the
I can take
other territory, so.
it. You ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, I would make a motion to
you did
approve
it.
resolution R 2025 TAC 90 for the comprehensive plan amendment to figure 4.60 metropolitan urban service area, MUSA, in the 2040 comprehensive plan for the Healing Center proposed development at southwest corner of Crest Avenue and Mullenhard Road. Did you want that one?
I did.
is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by
took it.
You get the
Counselor
next one.
Whiting and a second by Counselor Contreras. Is there discussion on the motion?
You should say something.
Discussion?
Did. I'm like, I'm ready. You thought you were ready.
Or you can say something on the motion
Are
anyway.
you ready for the Healing Center?
I am
or
ready for
were you ready for the motion?
For the motion.
Oh,
But
wow.
we're good. We're good.
Well, I'm ready
It's
for
getting
both,
done.
so.
Let's do it.
Very good. All right. No other discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, workshop area, 9A, overview of 2026 preliminary budget and levy.
Needs to be done.
Finance Director, Mr. Reinhardt.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight, we have a budget work session to provide an overview of the 2026 levy and budget. We still have a number of moving pieces at this point in time, so it will change from here, but we'd like to get council input at this point in time. Generally speaking, our budget objectives remain unchanged from the past few budgets. Continuing to be one of the lowest tax communities in the metro and continuing to grow our tax capacity of both existing and new property. We will continue to be transparent when we make decisions with the future in mind to ensure the city's ability to provide quality services at a reasonable price. And then as we go through the budget process, information will be updated on our budget website page. And then our taxpayer receipt tool remains available for anybody who's interested in using that. Providing high-quality service is the foundation of a healthy and growing community. Those high-quality services drive population growth as more people and businesses want to be part of our community. Population growth drives the real estate values, both in existing and new property. The growth of real estate values ensure rising tax revenues, which pays for our inflation-based cost increases of high-quality services with a minimal impact on the property tax rate. This cycle is the foundation of our budget development and helps us identify and explain influencing factors. Our role in that cycle is to ensure that we're providing high-quality city services, influencing the mix of property types between industrial, commercial, and residential, and then determining the appropriate balance between property or user fees and property taxes and other revenue sources when it comes to paying for those services. So here's where we're at today. Again, there's still several items that we're working through. Not a staff recommendation at this point in time. It's more or less where we're at right now. In total, we're at a $1.66 million increase in the levy, or a 6.22%. This increase includes about $1.4 million in general fund operations, and then a $300,000 capital improvement levy increase. If you recall from last April, City Council set aside $350,000 to be used towards debt service rather than levy for that. So there's no change in that debt service levy. And then preliminary, we've included a $50,000 increase in the EDA levy. So here's a summary of changes that impact the 2026 preliminary levy. This is in comparison to the 2025 budget. So all of these I'll also touch on in more detail. The amounts shown in the red parentheses, this would represent decreases in the property tax levy. So as an example, fee revenue would result in less property tax needed to fund those services. So in this case, red would mean good. Those additional revenues and transfers were able to offset about $2 million in expenses for 2026. So overall, the city is anticipating a net increase in property tax revenue of about $1 million, $1.9 million, $1.96 million. Several organizations contact with the Shakopee Police Department to provide services during the year. With the addition of the amphitheater and concerts, we have increased that contracted revenue by $616,000. This is offset by increases in staffing overtime, supplies, and contracting with other agencies to fulfill these agreements. The city has historically been conservative when forecasting their building permit revenue. We're forecasting a $450,000 increase in permit revenue for next year. In total, we have about $3.9 million budgeted for building permit revenue. Community center fees, you heard about.
What's the current on the building permit revenues? I mean, we've been real conservative on that, and we've been blowing it out of the water. Should we be adjusting that?
So we're budgeting about 3.9. The last couple of years, we've been over 5 million, right around 5 million. So there is some give and take. Obviously, at some point in time, the growth we're seeing is going to slow down based on what we
I
have
just
available.
hate to use that as a cushion every year, but we'll get nailed sometime, I suppose. But
Yeah.
Continue, sorry.
No problem. Then we talked about the community center, their proposed revenue policy as well as fee changes last city council meeting for the community center. So this budget reflects those changes, those proposed changes of about a $330,000 increase. And then city's proposing to add a dedicated health inspector to ensure the safety and cleanliness of our 12 hotels, 72 restaurants. That would be offset by new licenses and inspection fees. So we budgeted about $122,000 for both the position and the revenue. I won't necessarily talk about each one there, but list out the other changes on the slide. We have budgeted a net increase in transfers of $24,000. These transfers to the general fund help pay for operating costs that otherwise would be levy funded. The city did receive $1.99 million back in 2023 for one-time public safety aid. The thought process was that we'd use it to offset 2 new officers at that time in 2024 and half those officers in 2025. We didn't hire those officers until the fall of 2024, so as a result, there was some savings that we're proposing to utilize the remaining balance in 2026 of about $100,000. Staff is proposing to utilize $350,000 of fund balance from the city's self-insurance fund. This money was set aside actually back in 2017 when we explored options to self-insure health insurance. We used a portion of that fund balance in 2025, and we're trying to use the same amount, or proposing to use the same amount in 2026 of $350,000. We're actually in the process of exploring what a health insurance pool would look like with Scott County and cities within Scott County. So there may be some changes you see in 2027 regarding that.
And those discussions continue, obviously, and looking at what it looks like they're going to require, at least at this point, for our buy-in, if you will. It's well within our abilities based upon what we have in that fund already. So we're not at all worried about that piece of it.
And then the last one there, so staff is proposing a new from the EDA to the general fund in the amount of $50,000. So similar to the city utility funds, which would be sewer and stormwater, the EDA provides well, the EDA has provided some administration support from the general fund. So that would include city council, finance, HR, IT, communications. So from a financial standpoint, the administration allocation would better reflect the full cost of the EDA to reflect some of that in there, just like we do with the utilities with their transfers to the general fund. So we've proposed a $50,000 transfer from the EDA to offset those costs, and we're also proposing a $50,000 increase in the EDA levy to basically make it so there's no impact on operational funding.
Favor staff.
So next slide here. So moving on to expenditure changes. So like most other cities, operational costs are mostly driven by personnel, which represent about 63% of our expenditure side increase. I'll touch on most of these items on this slide. The third one down, which is the compensation study, I'll have a separate slide for. But wages and benefits account for nearly 70% of our general fund costs. The city has 3 unions, patrol, sergeant, public works. All 3 union contracts were revised in 2024 and cover through 2026. The 2026 budget has built on the assumption that patrol and sergeant unions and non-union wages will see that equivalent 3% COLA cost of living adjustment, and then the public works union will have a 3.5% cost of living adjustment. Across all employee groups, that amounts to about $720,000. The city maintains pay plans that include step increases for employees on their anniversary dates. Budgeted step increases amount to about $388,000. So these amounts here for the 2026 budget include a 15% increase in health insurance. We actually have received kind of updated numbers on that. Our health insurance increase is a little bit under 9%. We actually have a renewal meeting tomorrow to go through those amounts. So this amount will change. But as of now, it calculates to about $248,000. That combined with some changes we've seen in plans, we've seen a number of employees move from family to single or from low to high deductibles, so that offsets a little bit of this increase. But that makes up that number there. So even at, like I said, this is 15% in here, but it'll be below 9%, and we'll get that adjusted for the next time around. But that relatively favorable, at least in the last couple of years, we had a 16.7% and a 20.9% increase in health insurance. So with that, putting that in perspective, it seems relatively reasonable. So new items impacting the 2026 budget would be the health inspector, which I kind of mentioned on the revenue side. The Minnesota paid leave, that would be the state mandated leave program. That would require a 0.44% contribution from employer and employee. This new leave provides protected paid time off for eligible employees, so that would be up to 20 weeks per year for care for themselves, family members due to medical reasons, family needs, or safety concerns. The clerk admin assistant, this is proposed making a part-time admin position to a full-time admin position with benefits. This would provide consistent front desk support and support to other positions and allow other positions to focus on their specialized area. And then this one's for Councilmember Whiting. I think you mentioned this early in the council meeting today, but we're actually looking at a part-time marketing specialist that would be shared between recreation and communications. So we've typically used.
It says recreation and HR.
Well, is that what I put on there? That's a typo. It should be communications and recreation. So that is a typo on there.
Okay, I just wondered.
We took your advice
Well, okay.
less than half an hour ago.
I thought we were going to use HR
Plug it into
as
the
as
budget.
half-time marketing person, so I was wondering where that was going, but okay.
That was super fast.
Even I'm not perfect when I put these together, right? I'll get that corrected, but that would be a split position between communications and recreation, and it would do many of those things that Kelsey was talking about earlier, as far as year-round support.
Finding new
for
ways to
mobile
market.
recreation
All right.
programs, correct. And then I have just one little positive news, so one offsetting some of these increases. Workers' comp, so we've actually increased, or at least budgeted to increase our rates from 2022 to 24. We've seen some of our premiums go up. We actually saw that go down here in 2025, and we're projecting a little bit of a decrease in there based on claims data, what we saw in our last renewal based on, for those rates, and then recent changes to some of the post-traumatic stress disorder disability laws, we're actually decreasing the budget amount by about $295,000.
Mr. Reinhardt, I do have a question.
Yeah.
Election judges, 94,000. Is that only during election years, or do we see that every year, and that's just held over?
You'll see this on the slide every year. One year it's a positive and 1 year it's a negative.
Well, except for
So it's
one year.
every other year.
Anyway.
Except for that 1 year, correct. So this, oops, let me go to the next slide here. So the city recently completed a market compensation study for all non-union employees. The goal of the study was to evaluate non-union full-time staff with our comparable cities. Just as a reminder, that would be Maplewood, Coon Rapids, Lakeville, Roseville, Blaine, St. Louis Park, Golden Valley, Inver Grove Heights, Burnsville, and Savage. City Council has previously provided the guidance that that employees should be compensated at the salary midpoint of our comparable cities. So that was kind of the goal of the study, is to look at how we compare to that. The study did show that our pay plan is behind market averages and included several positions that were significantly behind the average wage of similar positions. So as a result, the following modifications are being proposed to the non-union plan. Proposed 1% market adjustment, proposed creation of additional step at 2% above the final step for each one of our pay grades, elimination of step 1 for grades 200 through 240. This is because that actually had an extra step compared to the other grades, so this would place the number of steps between the grades more in line. And then positions that are 6% or more below the market would be adjusted to a newly created half a grade. So this grade would be inserted at the midpoint between the current grade level and the next higher grade level. So those new grades impacted 18 positions or 21 employees.
So I have another question with that now. This study was completed, correct? Done?
Correct.
So were we way off? Were we kind of there? Just to make a little bit of, like, where did we fall? Were we?
We were, I think this will put us in line. I think the next slide will kind of show you kind of where we're at. So picture this as, here's the start of your pay plan, or the bottom of your pay plan, and here's the top of your pay plan, and how does it compare with the market midpoints?
I mean, I would say that we were significantly off, and certainly significantly off in certain positions.
Okay.
You know, if we weren't, we wouldn't have tried to find a solution that is as complex as this one actually is. And I can send you more information on that tomorrow on the compensation study itself, as well as along with the positions it affects and what that impact was. We have all that data, and I'll get that out to you tomorrow.
Okay.
And remember, this is non-union employees.
Right.
Right,
Non-union employees, and this is just getting us to that midpoint.
right.
Was the compensation study done in-house or by a third party?
No, it was done in-house.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we did the unions during the union.
Yep, that's exactly what we do. It's essentially the same thing we do with unions. We take a look at the job titles and compare with our comparable cities and, you know, recognizing that's what council feels comfortable with, and that's what we negotiate to.
Yeah, the one caveat is that we've got to establish pay plan with equity in between the
Yeah.
positions. So theoretically, if I do the same duties in finance, or if I do similar duties in finance as somebody in patrol and they've got a different, a comparable position, that it should follow along this pay equity schedule. So one thing that we noticed, for example, is when we looked at the market study, like there were some positions that might have been a little over, some positions that might have been a little under, some that were, way under. And the idea wasn't necessarily to drastically move from this pay plan, is to still keep the same pay plan system, but try to correct it so it at least gets closer to the midpoints throughout the mid-plan, or throughout the pay plan.
So you don't find yourself way off.
Right, yeah, exactly.
And trying to keep that same equity between our current positions, that the same integrity of our pay plan, I guess. Yeah, so as I mentioned, I think this chart provides kind of a good showing of what we try to accomplish. So it's the midpoint of the mark, the current midpoint, which would be the dark blue line, compared to where we would be at if this proposal goes through. But you can see the lines get much closer to tracking throughout our pay plan
Right.
based on that. So I did list out here operating adjustments that will kind of move on to future years. As I kind of mentioned, we're still kind of working through department budget entries, so we're still kind of in the early stage for that. But thought I'd just kind of mention kind of where we're at in the process. So what we typically do is we reach out to departments to try to identify any staffing changes, items over 10,000 as kind of our initial step. We also review kind of on a citywide basis our software contracts, put a forecast together for our utilities and our fuel so that some of these changes are applied consistently across the, I guess, across each department. And then preliminary, we know that budgets haven't quite been entered by all the departments, so we have put a placeholder aside. So that placeholder of $379,500, that'll go away with the next iteration of this once we get all the department budgets entered. But we have made some adjustments for, the first one there would be the public safety contracted costs, which would be offset to the revenue. And then we've updated the utilities, county prosecution costs, and then the fire department had an additional request for some turnout gear, training, medical equipment. And then the community center is also proposing to increase the cleaning contract from 2 days to 7 days a week, which is the $30,000 you see there. So next time you see that slide, it'll probably have more detail in it with that placeholder spread
So the
out.
budget placeholder for 379.5?
Yeah, and anything that we're not using that departments under that would just go away, and it'll be more specific.
Yeah, it's just simply there as we continue to work through the requests from the different pieces of the organization. We would much rather start here and then dial it down as we continue to work it, other than, saying it's going to be here and like, oh, wow, we just discovered we've got an $80,000 something we've got to fill here or whatever. So as Nate said, this will come down. This will be different the next time you see it.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Building rent, 2026 preliminary expenditure changes. There you go.
Okay, so the city does utilize internal service fund purchase of equipment, city equipment and facilities. The funding sources are through annual rents, which is just basically internal charges to the appropriate departments. The equipment rent, that's increased based on new equipment being added to the schedule, as well as just increases in vehicles and equipment costs. 20-year equipment replacement schedule has been included in the 20-year or the 5-year capital improvement plan. That includes all our equipment, useful lives, replacement years, and costs, if you want to see kind of the back end of the equipment. And building rents are set with the intention that they would provide the funding for the major maintenance projects, which would be like roof, spoilers, HVAC, et cetera, not necessarily fully funding the replacement of those buildings. But with that being said, we're seeing rent increases both in equipment and buildings because the project costs have kind of increased inflationary costs over the past few years, as well as more projects as our buildings become older. The annual cost of the other various internal service funds are small adjustments. We also, when we set these rents, we also take in consideration not only what we anticipate for future replacement costs, but also the balances of each of these funds. So we do try to offset some of these. One example being the fire vehicle that we sold back in. Proceeds were deposited into the equipment fund, so we accounted for that when we were setting our rents as well. And this one here would be just kind of one-time up and downs from year to year. Generally, for the most part, the way we do our internal service funds, we don't necessarily have a lot of ups and downs, but there are a few one-time adjustments. They would just be for next year with the exception of the comprehensive plan, which would be carried forward through 2026 and 2027. That would be a new building inspector vehicle proposed for 2026. Additional security cameras have been included for additional coverage at 500 Gorman Public Works Building, and then irrigation controller upgrades for parks. These costs would be offset by a one-time reduction in salt inventory, which we've built mild winters, and then the removal of previous items that were one-time items that were in the 2025 budget. One thing that staff is planning on doing is bringing a budget amendment back to City Council, kind of for your discretion if you would like to see those purchased this year. If so, then we'd take them out of the 2026 budget and pay for them this year if you'd like to see those projects move forward.
Back up, you lost me here. So at the bottom, it says potential 2025 budget amendment for the 92.5, which is the building inspector, security cameras, irrigation. And if it's a budget amendment, wouldn't it be coming out of 25?
Yeah. So we believe that we'd have the capacity in 2025 to make those purchases, that we'd be able to purchase them with our existing, either within our existing 2025 budget or do a budget amendment to use fund balance that we.
Fund balance, 2025 fund balance, therefore it wouldn't be, that 92.5 could be reduced, the 26 levy. Am I reading that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep, and then they would be removed right out of the 2026 budget. So the idea is that I'd bring that back for your consideration the next council meeting, and whether it gets approved or not is up to you. But all three of these I've talked to the departments about, and they would definitely be on board with moving forward with them this year.
The money to pay for them now, and we wouldn't add it to the next one, yeah. Got it.
So capital improvement levy, I know I talked about this through with the CIP as well, but I've seen the average cost for just our annual overlay and reconstruction projects of our existing streets go up pretty dramatically over the past 10 years. So we are proposing a $300,000 increase in the levy from 1.2 million to 1.5 million, which wouldn't necessarily completely close the debt gap, but definitely would help. So in the past, we've used one-time funding sources, which include general fund transfers, which we can continue to do, but I think long-term wise, it's not necessarily sustainable if this gap continues. Then one slide here on the EDA. I do plan on presenting the full EDA budget to the EDA board on September 2nd. The EDA levy is subject to percent of city's estimated market value. That cap for 2026 is over 1.5 million. So this levy being proposed is well within that cap. Again, just a reminder, the EDA levy differs slightly from the general fund levy in that it gets applied to all taxable properties within the city, including properties that are part of a tax abatement and tax increment district. So the EDA levy is also identified separately on the property tax statements from the city levy.
I'm not sure the last couple of years it actually has been broke out on my property tax statement.
Yeah, so I would have to look to see, but it is separated from the city levy. So whether it's shown as a separate line item or shown as other taxing districts, I'm not
Might be
quite
other taxing
sure.
district, but I've seen it in the past where it was EDA, but for the last few years, I haven't seen it.
I'm not like the mosquito folks.
I'm not really sure.
I've got mine upstairs. I could go get
No,
it.
I'm not sure. I'll double check, but it's just something we need to check into. 'Cause I remember asking myself the same exact question and saying the same thing last year, that it's not on my property tax statement. So I don't know if it's other or if it's included in the general levy.
The
Well, I
one
thought for
thing
sure
I
it
can
was.
guarantee is it's not within the general fund levy because they're using a different calculation.
Okay.
That amount, so
I'll have to
it
look.
wouldn't be
I'll
part
have
of
to
that.
look. Okay, continue.
Okay, so the idea behind kind of this $50,000 increase, again, as I kind of mentioned, is just to offset or at least show more of a accurate cost reflection of what it actually cost to run the EDA by showing that $50,000 transfer to the general fund to help support some of that admin costs that are being used by the EDA.
Well, we should look for a breakdown on that.
Moving on to market values, so I do have even more numbers for you, but here's the taxable market value based on the preliminary assessment from the county. We're seeing about a 412 million or a 5% increase from last year. Residential, apartment, commercial all saw growth in market value. New construction accounted for about 57.8% of that taxable market value. So a big chunk being new construction. And then one slide here on residential property values, just to provide kind of the overall context. The average home value change for existing homes, so when you pull out new construction, it's 2.1%. And then as you can see from this chart, 93% of residential homes saw very little change, plus or minus 5% from where their value was last year. I did look back at this slide from last year too, just to kind of see the number of properties. So if you're curious like I was, the same chart last year had 197 less residential properties, so 197 more are shown within that assessment. And then historical tax rates. This is again just based on what we currently have in our budget. We did not have, this doesn't reflect our fiscal disparities distribution, so what we received for fiscal disparities, which we also got at the end of last week, but it was actually a slight decrease in that distribution amount, so the rate will change slightly for that too. But based on preliminary value as it stands today, a slight increase in the city's tax rate from 27.77 to 28.73.
Nate, if you can go back a page, market values.
Yeah, you bet.
One more. There, it's the class, market value by class.
Okay.
There you go. I'm looking at industrial and commercial and payable 25 to 26, and boy, you know, it doesn't look like much. You know, industrial's $100 million, and it just doesn't seem 3%, right? It's both classes are less than residential. Granted, we're adding a lot of residential, but you know, I'm wondering what the norm trend is for commercial industrial. Are we seeing them valuation increases kind of slowing down is the question that I have. And that might be a better question for Mr. Kursky. I don't know.
I mean, I'm trying to think back from last year. I think we saw a little bit higher increases on the commercial and industrial side than we saw on this year, if I recall correctly, but I could.
No, we didn't have much this last year.
I could certainly.
Well, we're adding commercial, but, you know, if you look at the wider economic conditions, and they're different in different parts of the country, but there are some struggles in the commercial and industrial areas, and we all know why. There's certainly a lot of uncertainty out there by various, you know, policies at the higher levels.
Not in Shakopee.
Well, you got trade stuff going on that's impacting various things. You've got a lot of uncertainty that's affecting a lot of things, and nothing that we can control, obviously, but, you know, it's something we certainly have to watch out to how some of these things impact us moving forward.
Yeah, the one thing I would say is the mix that we have in the city of Shakopee is a lot different than what you see in other cities. So we have a pretty diversified between apartment, commercial, industrial, residential, and then even the same types of residential is, we've got a good mix of different varying.
And we're seeing
residential and varying commercial and industrial.
We are seeing that change from typically what Shakopee has had between commercial, industrial, and residential. It's starting to go the other way now. Now we're seeing more residential than commercial industrial.
Yeah, we'll see a big jump here in the next couple of years with the amphitheater and
Maybe
those other venues.
Maybe. And there again, it's a lot of it with uncertainty that we can't control.
But
You know,
it's still a taxable asset.
So again, this is just based on what we have for data today, but here's what you would see for the median value home over the past 5 years. So value for the median value home is now $361,300, increase of $10,600 from last year. For a median value home, based on their value change and what's currently in our budget, be about a $66 or a 7% increase in property taxes. If you took out the value change and just use the median value home value with no change from the previous year, that tax increase would be about $32 or 3.5%. And then just, again, as reference, when we talk about how much a percent levy change would impact the median value home. A 1% change, whether it's up and down, is about, well, it's about $10 on the median value home. So it's at a little bit of
And are
perspective.
these projections based on what's been presented with the unknown end insurance and the, well, there's 3 different items that were listed in here that aren't, well, there's a lot more than that probably that aren't cast in stone yet.
Yeah, yeah. That's, as well as the historical tax rate that we have at 28.73%, that will come down as well once we actually dial in the budget itself and plug in all the numbers. Again, we're here and we're working our way down.
This slide is from last year's budget presentation, but always a good reminder that we continue to be one of the lowest tax communities in the metro area. So this is showing the 32 cities in the metro area between 25,000 and 100,000 in population. This is based on the 2024 property taxes. That's the most recent available on the League of Minnesota Cities property tax calculator. But as you can see, we're on the lower end of the equation. And then for the 2025 cost of services, so this has been updated for this year. So this would compare the cost of services the city provides. So your property taxes funding your city services, as well as our 2 utilities, which would be water, or not water, but sewer and storm. So $300,000 home with 5,000 gallons of water a month. So we're at the lowest in comparison to our peer cities at about 1,094. The other cities range from 1,343 to 2,083. You'll actually see that we went down a couple of bucks from last year. That's basically because of the market value exclusion law that, and then we've also kept pretty minimal change in our tax rate, and then our sewer and storm rate change were minimal too. So you actually would see for the $300,000 home would actually be slightly down in 2025. Budget schedule for reference. So we do have to adopt the preliminary levy by September 30th. From that point on, levy can't be increased, it can only be decreased. County usually will mail the preliminary tax notices in November. And then the next meeting, next EDA meeting, I'll be presenting the EDA budget to the EDA board. So with that, we'll take any direction or input you might have on the levy or budget.
Anything? Obviously, I'd like to see as low of an increase as possible, but this is all preliminary, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think we've got a few more numbers to look at on there, but
Don't go down. Oh, good, thank you.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yeah, you're welcome.
9B, scale 2026 legislative priorities. Who is handling that one?
That would be me, sir.
Mr. Reynolds, floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. Every year, SCALE has a group of legislative priorities that it puts together for our local legislators, our local legislators to hopefully support. I presented to you 2025s in a packet, and what they're looking for is 2026. There are a couple things that I noted. You know, obviously, we have our bonding, we have the Hub Innovation Center, which you're all very familiar with. This is probably year 5 or 4 that this will be year 5, I guess, that we're actually requesting funds for it. And then now also funding for the Downtown Railroad Quiet Zone. After talking with Representative Tabke, he really wants to work on that effort. When we look at policy issues, a couple from the past that you know, I think the legislature, for example, thought they solved our issue when it came to notices. But attorneys disagree with that, and so we still post our notices in a paper where, in a community that's not near us and nobody reads. And that's a ridiculous, you're not serving anyone notice whatsoever. It doesn't help our residents, and it costs them tax dollars at the end of the day for us to do it. So that has not been solved. We would request that to be part of our particular, and I'm sure the other cities in the area would also like to get on board with that as well as part of bringing it forward from SCALE. And then Electric bikes, we've had a lot of discussion about electric bikes, and council specifically talked about state taking a hard look and legislating on that. And, yeah, that's a great idea. So, you know, we know that that's an issue. We also know that's an issue not just here, it's an issue everywhere. And I think that that might be an opportunity for the state to take a hard look at it if we put it in our priorities with scale. And then finally, one that came up in discussions with a member of the county board was MVTA and you know, the constant battles that they have with Met Council for funding and not having a dedicated funding source. And that seemed to make a great statement to put that in as well, and then bring that in front of scale, and I'm sure that will receive support from scale as well. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that I came up with as things in the past and things that have been pressure points for council in the last year or so, or other issues. And, you know, I just open it up to any other ideas you would have that you might want to include. And then ultimately what will happen is that I'll go in and make a presentation to scale on the issues, and then they'll vote on, you know, what they're willing to support. So I'll leave that to you, ladies and gentlemen. You can tell me if you have other ideas.
You think we're pretty well on the innovation hub, punching that through and getting what we need there?
Yeah, I mean, the Scale has supported that project since the very beginning, so I don't see that changing.
It's a matter of state and federal capital dollars.
And I think we're still working on discussions with the training center, and that's internal more than legislative, but I might be asking for something someday from them, I guess, on that front.
From my understanding, there are other communities that have told the county that, you know, they're not looking forward to moving, or they're not going to be going forward with the RTF in the future, so.
So we don't need to
I don't
ask the
know the
state for
viability
anything.
of what the RTF is. We haven't been involved in the discussions for several years.
Okay.
And we'll fulfill our obligation.
Yes, correct. We'll continue to fulfill our obligation, and then when it's done, it's done.
Yep, Counselor Whiting, as our liaison to MBTA, brought up a pretty detailed discussion on that in his liaison report. And there's sense there was council support for that, the funding mechanism that you pointed out.
So there has been some improvements, and I must say that the Med Council has come around to some of that stuff, but there still is, you know, we got to replace them buses, and that wasn't included in those discussions. So the bus replacement and how we grow is not really part of that. So there has been improvements, and but there's still that sustainable, continuous, so we don't have to fight every year for funding.
So does anybody else have anything else to add to this list?
No,
Okay.
I feel.
I've got Met Council reform / restructuring, which has been very consistent throughout Scott County and all the cities.
And I am sure, I'm sure it was in 25, but I'm sure it'll be in 26.
I didn't see it in the write-up that
That they made.
Scale had here for 25.
We got
That
roads
wasn't-
and bridges.
I didn't see it included, so that's
Yeah,
not.
I'm not sure why I don't know why.
And so
Been a
let's
reason.
ask that question because that's critical to all of us.
Yeah.
And fiscal disparity reform would be a good one.
Which was something that was talked about in the last election cycle by our elected leaders, that
Right.
that's something that they're willing to consider.
Correct.
Let's hold them to that.
I know it's a very tough cookie to crumble.
At scale, too, because some of those are collectors.
It is, but
Yeah, that won't make it.
okay, but okay, but let's be clear now that does the majority of us support staff
To put it
working on that legislatively?
To try.
Because it's just not.
At a
It's
Shakopee
convoluted, it's
level.
outdated, it's
Yeah.
very unfair.
But remember, we're looking at scales objectives
Yep.
here, so.
Yep.
we're-
And just on fiscal disparities, you know, as everyone knows, I'd love to, you know, slayer of fiscal disparities be on my
Okay.
tombstone. I've been a part of 2 different legislative efforts to study it. I know way too much about it at this point, and the reality is, unless the politics shift, in other words, you got to have more people paying than getting, and until that happens, you're not going to have the legislature act to make any changes. And so,
Or you could change how you allocate.
yeah, well, we've looked at it, and there's just, no one's willing to do it. No one's willing to, yeah, so, anyway, fiscal disparities.
And
Go team.
the other one I had was unfunded mandates, which should be everywhere, all the time. You know, they're really good at pushing things down, unfunded mandates to cities and counties and stuff, and you know, I know they're not in a position to fund a lot of their unfunded mandates because of spending down their surpluses, raising taxes, and still having a debt. But that doesn't change the outcome at the lower levels. Matter of fact, it makes it even more important because when they're in that fiscal position, they're going to be less apt to even consider funding some of their unfunded mandates.
Was the 169 Coalition represented in any of their projects that scale could get behind as a global?
I
Projects?
don't know the answer to that
All right,
question. I
well-
mean, you have members of the 169
Yeah,
Coalition that are in scale.
So they should get their stuff through if they had it. Okay. And as far as projects that we have
Yeah.
on a broader scale for scale to support as far as transportation and bridges, I don't know of any that we can.
Yeah, in the
put out.
past, work that's been done in Savage and Jordan right now.
Yeah. that was also
All was part of, supported through scale.
So if they had something, they'd have it in there.
We'll see how, once the amphitheater's opened up and we have our first full season of all the entertainment venues going, how the river crossing capacity issue is.
Right.
And
I want to talk about that other business or at our liaison report. How about?
anything else on the legislative priorities for scale?
No, seems pretty straightforward.
Yep.
Okay.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much, appreciate it.
Liaison administrative reports. Which side did we start last time?
This side.
So Jay, you're up.
All right. Okay, let's see, it was Wednesday, 8/13, Shakopee Schools Engaged, the academies and champions kind of had their discussion and got an opportunity to talk to some of the students that were involved in the academies. And I want to thank city staff for being involved in that and sponsoring and being a champion of that group. I think it was a good project. I think we can utilize a lot of those folks, those kids' talents. So on the 15th, we had the Shakopee Amphitheater Tour with the MVTA and some members of Mr. Reynolds' administrative group, and went out there and had a nice tour. And part of that, we talked about some of the transportation. So if there's a full event at Canterbury and a full event going on at that amphitheater, there is going to be a lot of liaisons and partnerships working with the bus, and all options will be open at that point. And like you mentioned, that will be our first pressure test.
The park and ride and what do they call them? The micro
Microtransit and Ubers and all of those will be needed to be fully utilized. So we'll have a learning experience at that point, but we'll see. And then let's see, MVTA management meeting met on the 18th. We talked a lot about our the new accounting principles that are coming up. Some notes on that. There's some new processes that we'll be going through on for the GASB, which we all love to
Yep.
talk about. So there's some new things
government
in-
accounting standards.
some of our capital budget improvements and things like that. So some more of the financial stuff. But that's all I have.
Very good. Thank you. Councilor Contreras.
Thank you, Mayor. So Friday, the August 8th, I attended the SCALE meeting, and the first thing was Prior Lake had a meeting host update. And what caught my attention was that they're having a park and trails referendum, $60 million referendum vote on Tuesday, November 4th. And that is, most parks and trails were, of course, were built decades ago. So there's going to be an upgrade to neighborhood parks, trails, lakefront parks, and Spring Lake Park, it said. Spring Lake Park, additional pickleballs, skating rinks, warming house, year-round bathrooms. And for more information, if anybody wants, you can go to playexploreconnectpl.org. But I didn't know they're gonna, that's big. Anyway, all right. And then the second part to that was fire services in Scott County. That was, let me just get to my note here. So two of the chiefs, that was Fire Chief from Jordan, Savage, and from Jordan, and pretty much they just discussed how the fire service currently operates and how it is evolving to meet the contemporary needs and challenges. And it's two-part, I believe, and then the next part will be September 12th, and that'll be a panel of municipal representatives and they'll discuss how our community's fire services has changed over the last 5 years, where they think it will be going, and the challenges and opportunities that come with this vital public safety service. So, I mean, that was really good, though. Lots of great information.
Good.
Oh, and then today, sorry, before I forget, I did attend the naming of the Mystic Lake Amphitheater.
Very good.
Thank you.
Counselor Lara?
Thank you, Mayor. August 13th, I also attended the Engage 2025 from the Shakopee Public Schools regarding the academies, and it was a great opportunity to not only bring in the other academies' sponsorships and champions, but also potential, where they talked about how these academies are really investing in our future workforce, and it's a great way for businesses in the area to showcase and say, hey, look, you can work here, we will have jobs for you, and this is what we're looking for you to do. So that was great to attend and see everyone there. And then today also attended the naming ceremony for Mystic Lake Amphitheater.
Very good. Two pieces that I have. One is the League of Minnesota Cities is recognized Representative Tabke, 2025 Legislator of Distinction for 2025. I don't really want to read this whole thing, but it's, basically saying that the League of Minnesota City feels that he deserves to be recognized with distinction for his efforts on various things. So they did this for multiple representatives on both sides of the aisle, which is good to see. Representative Tapke, but is our representative, so it's important that we recognize his efforts and give him our appreciation publicly. So we'll make sure to get this a copy out to everybody, and staff wants to do more with it, that's fine. Thank you very much, Representative Tapke, for your efforts. The second thing was I also attended the naming of the amphitheater today. Had some lengthy conversations with Live Nation specifically about the transportation piece. Councilor Lara was, and Councilor Contreras were also in attendance, may have heard some of them conversations, but yeah, there's a lot of opportunities to do some really good things and really utilize some of our park and rides and some of our micro-transit options and some of our other options. So it's kind of cool that we're already laid out for this in advance. We've got the South Bridge Station, we've got the Marshall Road area, we've got the Eagle Creek Station, Mystic Lake, and the Shakopee Wauketon Sioux have some opportunities for parking. So, seems to be a lot of concern, but if you look at the big picture, there's sure a lot of opportunities, and we saw how that worked out with the changes that were required in Scott County's CUP for Renfest, of what a huge difference that made, just a little bit of planning going into it. Well, maybe a lot of planning, sorry, Commissioner. But we saw the benefits and goodness out of them efforts on our highway and the backups and stuff, so.
They actually hired somebody to do the Ren. They actually hired a group to run the parking at the Renfest, I think.
Yeah, and it's a good improvement. We noticed it on 169 during the events, and, so we know these things work.
Yeah.
And we just have the infrastructure already in place, whether it's MVTA or the park and rides and the Canterbury.
Well,
So we've got a
MVTA
lot
is
of-
geared up for this opportunity.
Yep, we've
to
got
partner.
a lot of the pieces in place, ready to go, and we can capitalize on them, and we certainly should, and we're in a much better place than others. Now, back to the amphitheater. I did get asked to say a couple words. I did say a couple words. The venue it's very unique, and there is not a bad seat in the house. You can walk that place 3 times over, and there is no place that you can't have it. It's pretty awesome. The sound was laid out so it's shooting out into either the building itself or into industrial areas, so it'll have minimal impact on any residential properties. We've got 169 right there. We've got 83 rebuilt. You got 101 was redone up to 212. So we've got a lot of good things going for us to make some of these things very successful.
Live Nation actually stepped it up for the entertainers too, so to make them want to come back to that venue
Yeah,
too.
it's a state of the art. Not only that, but the electronics and technology that they put into it for the artist and the fans and the users is like none other in the country. So this is a big deal. It's going to be pretty cool, and cat's out of the bag. If the right concert people come to town on a Tuesday, I might have to miss
We
it.
tried to find out who was coming, but they have not said who's on the.
I might have to miss a council meeting
right.
if it's on a Tuesday. Yeah. But no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, it was good. It was good to talk to all them folks. Canterbury was, Randy Sampson and Canterbury were involved. Swervo Development doing a great job. City staff, council. There's plenty of kudos and thanks to go around. So, and I reiterated that in my comments at the gathering. Mr. Reynolds, do you have anything?
Nothing for me, sir.
City bill list.
No questions.
News
Oh, no.
and announcements.
Sure, I'll kick it off. TAP 2025 is taking place September 13th from 1 to 5 p.m. downtown Shakopee. This is an event that is a craft beer tasting and showcase with more than 40 Minnesota breweries participating. It is hosted by the Shakopee Economic Development Authority. Please visit www.tapshakopee.com to learn more and purchase your tickets like I did today.
Sand Ventures' last day of the season is August 22nd, 2025. Sand Ventures season is coming to a close. Like I said, on the 22nd, the park is currently operating with modified hours of 11 to 5. We can't wait to see you next summer.
You want to go, Jay?
Oh, go ahead.
Community Center Maintenance Week. Shakopee Community Center will be closed from August 30th to September 7th for Maintenance Week. During this time, the Community Center will be installing new cardio equipment, refinishing the wood floors, deep cleaning these spaces, and servicing the facility and equipment. I know some people have already contacted me on that and said, gee, that's such a long time to be closed. And I pointed out that deep cleaning is important. And
sanitize.
Absolutely. And, it takes time, and it's for the benefit of all the people that are using it and stuff. It's a good practice. So, Mr.
All
Whiting?
right, it's the Marystown Road Reconstruction Project. Construction will begin in the coming weeks of the Marystown Road Reconstruction Project starting August 25th. The contractor will be constructing the temporary roadway connecting the Tapa Park parking lots on Tuesday, September 2nd. The southbound US 169 on-off ramp will be closed to all traffic for construction of the first phase of the project. This intersection is anticipated to be reopened for traffic by November 1st. Visit www.marystownroad.com to sign up for the project updates.
And just to go off of that, there's been some questions about work and closings on on this road, and there's also the roundabout out on 78, is it? That they were doing the seal coat on.
Oh, yeah.
That's probably done here.
So people are getting it too confused, but that's a little thing. They seal coat it like they do your street in front of your house. This is a pretty big
It's a
project.
little bigger. Yeah, project.
Mr. Reynolds, you get the last one.
Thank you, sir. The downtown lighting improvements. Work began last week. The project is located along Holmes Street between 1st and 3rd Avenue. The improvements include replacing the existing street lighting system, brick pavers, and pedestrian curb ramps, and will continue to October.
Long time coming.
Yeah, some of them were either taken out because they were getting pretty bad off, or they fall down, I guess.
I saw a truck take one out.
Some of them you looked at and it's like, oh boy, we got to get this done.
Yeah. All right, item 11, other business. Do we have any other business?
Jay did.
Mr. Whiting?
No, I covered it on my liaison.
Okay, wishes of council. Mr. Lara,
I will make a motion to adjourn to September 2nd, 2025 at 7 p.m.
is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Mr. Whiting. Discussion on the motion? Discussion, seeing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned.